So a lot of singles are asking us this question is that why am I in this time of my life? I'm in my late 20s or 30s or 40s and 50s, and
And
I've
even 60s.
60s, never been married, and I can't really get there. Why is it? What's holding me back? A lot of it can actually be explained by studying.
Peter Pan syndrome. Peter Pan is a fictional cartoon character, I guess, that didn't want to grow up and lived in Neverland. He
Mm-hmm.
he he just stayed perpetually in boyhood.
Yeah. And
Um,
a lot of you've seen Peter Pan movie or a cartoon and you know the story.
so what is Peter Pan syndrome? It is a term used to describe an adult who exhibits childlike behavior, and I'm going to read some notes that I made here,
Mm-hmm.
and refuses to embrace the responsibilities and emotional maturity typically associated with adulthood. And it's it shows up in avoidance of responsibility, like difficulty maintaining stable employment or relationships or personal obligations, or
Mm-hmm.
dependence on others, relying
Mm-hmm.
heavily on family, friends, or partners for emotional, financial, or logistical support,
Mm-hmm.
emotional immaturity, struggling to handle conflicts, make
Yes.
decisions, or regulate emotions effectively, escapism,
Mm-hmm.
preferring leisure, fantasy, or entertainment over practical life responsibilities. And
Yeah.
then commitment issues, hesitation to engage in long-term plans or relationships. And I can definitely relate to this. When I was a single young man, I was very much stuck in the Peter Pan mindset. And this to address this requires humility,
Mm-hmm.
honesty, and not getting offended,
Mm-hmm.
because the people that can most help you snap out of the Peter Pan mindset are also the ones that are willing to cause you pain to grow and
Yeah.
mature. And
Yeah.
then that person can look like the problem or part of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
whereas actually it's our response to a situation
Mm-hmm.
that has potential to cause us to grow and level up instead of
Mm-hmm.
folding like a $2 suitcase
Mm-hmm.
and going back into the same old rut and the same old cycle of poor me, everybody's against me, or I can't get along with certain people, I can't handle certain stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's a couple other notes that I made. I'm just going to run through these. It might sound somewhat disorganized, but just bear with me and watch the video repeatedly. Take notes if you need to. Overcomplicating things to run from the simple
Mm-hmm.
things that
Mm-hmm.
require growing up, maturing, and taking on more responsibility is a
Yeah.
common thing. Is looking at marriage like this big mountain, this big complicated thing. When from God's perspective, it's actually very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. We humans tend to overcomplicate it, but overcomplicating the simple is really just running from the solution that's staring us right in the face, and we're just attaching all this stuff that makes it look hard, but all that stuff is just simply the things that are scary to us. More
Mm-hmm.
bills, more
Mm-hmm.
responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, maturing. I need to deal with issues in within and the pain and
Mm-hmm.
the healing that I need to go through. I need to address deep unresolved issues,
Yes.
and all of a sudden it looks like this big complicated thing. In order for me to get married, I have to do all this stuff. Well, see that as it's simple, but it looks complicated because we're hanging on to all these things that look
Mm-hmm.
hard and painful to embrace and overcome.
And I would like to speak into that. So, where does the Peter Pan syndrome comes from? It comes from most of the time single moms raising children or where the father is absent and men grew up being protected by their mom and they haven't been giving a voice too much, or they are much softer than the boys who grew up with the father, and they and also who were embracing masculinity and embracing who they are as created as man. And for women, a lot of times w women would grow up again as little girls that don't have a father, and the mom was protecting her and speaking for her. She's shy. Oh my goodness. Or he is shy. It can go both ways, right? Boys or girls.
Yeah, hiding in mama's skirts.
And so because of that, you know, people didn't develop that strength of confidence and courage and boldness, who they are, knowing who they are, standing up for themselves, and then making decisions, right? A lot of times, parents that were raising kids that were not, were protecting them, I guess, they didn't develop in their children of decision-making
Yeah,
muscle.
overly protective parents produces children that have more of a Peter Pan mindset and lack courage and confidence in stepping into something that looks risky and scary. There's a balance. It's the wisdom of the parent is required to discern when to allow the child to fall, stumble, and skin their knees, and allow them to comprehend and understand cause and effect and consequences.
Yeah.
And my own dad was a lion type leader of a man, and he didn't take any baloney. I mean, it was, get her done, stop fussing, no arguing, no excuses. And from our perspective as children, we thought he was harsh and verbally abusive, and maybe there was a little bit of that going on, but mom was then also very protective, and especially for me. And that really stunted my emotional maturity as a man. And it took me 20 years to figure that out before getting married. So, and thus, my extended singlehood was a choice that was grounded in laziness, not wanting to grow up, mature, and take on more responsibility and have more bills. Because I was struggling financially alone. I was like, well, that just shot a hole through my confidence of, well, how could I ever, be able to provide for a wife and children if I can't even make it on my own, and not recognizing that I needed to rise up and, pursue jobs that I really didn't like, because guess what? The hard jobs that nobody else wants often pay more. I wanted the easy jobs that were just more relaxed and chill, and like in my line. And I didn't want to get into construction work because I hated the work for one, but it did pay good money, So again, sometimes a man's got to do what he's got to do and rise up and grit his teeth and do it anyhow, because it's got to be done. And that's the mindset I had to adopt.
And then there are other men or women who see that, you know what, I actually love working hard and career and making lots of money. And that becomes your scapegoat and excuse for not getting into relationships. You actually cover up the lack of relationships with career. And that's also escaping.
It's basically the same thing on the opposite side of the coin.
Yeah. And so, we also talk about how prolonged dating is also a playground, and you are playing marriage without a commitment
and the
responsibility, because you want to see, does this work for me? Oh, okay, this person doesn't work for me, so maybe I need to find another person, and that person will make it work for me.
Yeah, if dating doesn't promptly take you towards making a decision on proposing, if it doesn't move in that direction very soon, the longer you date, let's put it this way. So I'm not knocking dating, but the longer you date without moving into the next step, the more you end up in the rut of playing marriage, whether emotionally or physically, without the accompanying responsibility.
Yeah.
And so if you've been dating for a long time, you might want to take inventory of like, where are you at with this? And do you need to break it off? Or not necessarily break off, but maybe you need to just stay friends and not call it a dating relationship. Or maybe you need to propose. This is for the men especially, but for the women too. Again, there's always the flip counterpart, and I'll allow you to speak into what that looks like for the women.
Yeah.
And I can speak easily for the men. if what if a woman was in a dating relationship where, you know, is that a thing? Where they put themselves in a position to be in an extended dating relationship that doesn't move towards marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, if you look at it, it's marriage is simple. We make it complicated. We make it look like it's a difficult thing. And because we are looking for a person that's going to fulfill our needs, fulfill our dreams, and get us to where we want to be. Well, marriage is not about that. Okay. We're here to contribute to the world, to some mission, some purpose, and we need to discover what that is. And when you discover what that is, you picking your partner, your spouse, to be aligned on that mission so that you can fulfill it together.
Be more effective.
Be more effective.
And produce more of you to
Yeah.
help you do it, carry
Yeah.
on your work after you can.
Right. And so what we do as women, and listen, I'm not saying that that's everyone, and it's not because, I don't want to blame the world either on this, but it is how society set us up that when we graduate high school or any school, right, we need to go right into college because they need working forces. They train you how to be a worker for a certain position. And then after you graduate college, you accumulated debt, most likely, if your parents didn't pay for your, loan or your college education, tuition. So then you want to work to pay off the loans. And then because of you living by yourself, now you're thinking, well, I don't know if I can trust another person. I'm already working, I'm building my career. That's my identity. I need to buy a house. I need to buy a car. And then we put ourselves as women in a position that we don't need a man anymore. We don't need to have any partnership. We can do it all ourselves. And then because we can do it all ourselves, we can actually go into a relationship kind of half-heartedly and come as well, I'm actually going to test you out. Can you do for me what I want you to do for me? Right? And then, of course, there are some women that they don't go to college, they don't go through that, but they're waiting for that prince to come and save them from where they are so that they can be provided for.
Always two opposite responses to the very same issue.
Yeah.
Some people avoid the pain of work and responsibility, and others bury themselves in that.
Yeah.
But both of them are avoiding
Yeah.
the ultimate responsibility of marriage, which will 10x your effectiveness in anything you do if you have deep connection between you and your spouse. And that doesn't just happen, it's created.
Yes.
And that requires responsibility too, is to maintain that connection in your marriage so that you can continue to be effective.
Yeah.
So,
well, the good news is though, so we talked about the Peter Pan syndrome.
Talked all about the problem. What do you do about this is if you can identify with this. Now, what do you do?
Yeah, or Peter Pan or Patty Pan, maybe. I don't know. And so, but the good news is marriage is beautiful. Marriage is actually simple. And if you come to know what to do and how to equip yourself and to move forward in that, oh my goodness, it's a gift that you can just walk into it, choose correctly, and then, have that marriage.
Yeah.
But I know you have some things to share.
I do. I just
how
want to add,
flip that coin,
yes.
right?
And before we go there, and on the solution to this, if you can identify this, I would say to those of you that see marriage as complicated and hard, maybe it has been for you. Maybe you come from a dramatic, very painful experience in past. I understand that's very difficult, very challenging. At the same time, the math of 1 + 1 always equaling 2 doesn't honor ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it requires humility to recognize that we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
and that the chaos and destruction in our life that may have happened or is happening is always a result of what we don't know that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if we knew now, if we knew then what we know now, we probably would have made better choices, right?
Yeah.
Or we would have had better discernment and made a better decision and could have avoided some of those things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in moving forward, how could you make marriage or anything easy for that matter? It's connected directly to how radically you're willing to get on taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The more you're willing to take drastic, radical responsibility, even if it costs you your life, that level of
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to the point of death is what makes everything else seem easy because you're willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what. You're
Mm-hmm.
all in, you're committed, you're dedicated.
Yeah.
And to the degree to which you shrink away from that is the degree to which things become complicated and hard because you
Mm-hmm.
get to choose your hard. The more you embrace the hard and move into it and press into it, the easier things become
Yes.
because you stay ahead of the curve. You stay ahead of the adversary of your soul who wants to mess you up and screw things up and complicate things
Mm-hmm.
because you're always pushing forward and creating your hard by moving into the pain and the difficulty of growing and maturing.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, life doesn't have to do it for you. God doesn't necessarily have to push you into things, and the doors won't be open for the enemy to bring things into your life that maybe the Lord allows some things to because he sees you need to grow up and mature in these areas. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
see that deeply into the spirit realm. I'm just kind of talking from, my heart there. So hear what I'm trying to say. So with that, all that being said, what are the solutions here? Here's some practical life application things for you to take notes on and consider. So grab a pen and write it down or replay or slow down the video because I'm going to read fairly fast. Develop self-awareness by reflecting on your behaviors and setting clear goals.
Mm-hmm.
Take responsibility for your actions by owning your mistakes and committing to small responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Build healthy habits by creating a routine and setting deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace growth in relationships by investing in others and
Mm-hmm.
learning conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Face fears of failures by starting small and seeking feedback. Cultivate independence with financial responsibility and learning new life skills.
Mm-hmm.
Build emotional resilience by practicing delayed gratification and seeking therapy or counseling if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with role models who are a positive influence on you and provide mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And adopt a growth mindset that reframes your challenges and celebrates your progress.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. I understand. Probably faster you can take notes, but again, you can always go back and replay. Hopefully this video helps you. Did you have any
Yes.
final closing thoughts on
I
that?
was just thinking about one other aspect that I see a lot, and I've done it so many times, and I'm really learning how to mature in this area as well, is that a cancel culture.
Not taking responsibility for our choices
Yeah.
always results in blame shifting and making the person or the thing the problem,
Yeah.
and then shouting it from the proverbial
Mm-hmm.
rooftops
Mm-hmm.
that this person or this company is evil because
Yeah.
of my problems.
And that's where
It's
divorces
basically what I'm
come.
saying, yeah.
That's where divorce comes, and then it becomes messy.
Mm-hmm.
You made a decision to marry this person, and then that person becomes evil because they didn't deliver what you thought you wanted, your expectations. Well, marriage is something that two people are working together. There's communication, and that's where maturity comes. And so we act on so many different things in our lives that's doing that cancel thing, and we take it into marriage. It's just a lot of that syndrome, Peter Pan syndrome, is actually affecting our lives.
And I hear also the person watching this video who has been in a relationship with a narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always like to speak into that because that's one of the most common objections that
Yes.
come up.
Yes.
As in, but, you don't understand my situation, or I had this. Well, okay, again, I'll remind you, the narcissist can't cohabit with anything else but the victim.
Mm-hmm.
So the victim and the narcissist attract, unfortunately. So the victim mindset attracts the narcissist. The
Or
narcissist attracts the victim.
people
And so if
pleaser.
you want to break that cycle of attracting that type of person into your life, then take responsibility for the victim mindset and receive healing and go there. Take radical responsibility for what you're responsible for in attracting that type of person into your life.
Yeah.
Because if you rise up and take and in your God-given human authority, stop being the victim and learn how to say no and mean it and mean what you say and say what you mean, and then back it up with real, meaningful action without anger. Just, no, I've made my decision. I'm committed. That's what protects you from getting into those relationships. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone that's been in a relationship like that are demonic. I mean, very, very hard and challenging.
Yeah.
But still, there's a responsibility. It still can be taken for the person that comes out of a narcissistic relationship is,
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to be part of.
Yeah,
And
there's plenty of responsibility to go around for all of us in every situation we're in, no matter what, across the board.
Yeah.
Before a holy God, God can definitely provide a whole list of things that all of us humans, all 8 billion of us, could take responsibility in for our lot in life and where we're at. So with that, we're going to go practice what we preach and sign off, and we'll see you next week.
That's right.